Welcome back to the deep dive. I want you to just picture a specific kind of frustration for a second.
Okay.
You walk into a doctor's office. Maybe it's for a bad back, a knee that clicks, something nagging that just won't go away.
We've all been there.
Exactly. You're in pain.
Yeah.
And the system works exactly as it's designed to. The doctor listens, they empathize, they nod, and then they write a script.
And you walk out with that solution in a little paper bag.
You feel heard. You feel treated.
It's the ideal scenario, isn't it? It's
Right.
efficient, it's compassionate, it's exactly what we pay our insurance premiums for. We want the fix.
Right. But what if that exact moment, that efficient, compassionate transaction, was actually the first step into a trap?
A trap you wouldn't even see closing until it was way, way too late.
We are diving into a stack of documents today that, I have to be honest, they really shook me. We're looking at the Netherlands.
And that's important context right away, because when we talk about the topic of today's deep dive, the opioid crisis, we have a very specific movie that plays in our heads.
A very American movie. It's an American movie, yeah.
Yeah.
We think of Appalachia, we think of the Rust Belt, we think of the Sacklers families and Purdue Pharma.
Predatory capitalism.
A uniquely American style of it, yeah. We see it as an American failure.
But the source material we have today, and this comes from a massive investigation by the Dutch program Zembla, it just blows that assumption completely out of the water.
We aren't looking at a broken system in West Virginia. We are looking at a healthcare system that prides itself on rationality, on restraint, on regulation.
And yet the numbers coming out of this investigation are, well, they're staggering. 1 in 4.
That's the headline statistic. 1 in 4 people in the Netherlands suffer from chronic pain.
Millions of people.
Millions. Millions of people living with a signal in their body that just will not turn off. And the medical system's response to that signal has created a secondary epidemic, one that's almost invisible unless you know where to look.
And we're talking about oxycodone, we're talking about fentanyl, the heavy hitters.
So-called miracle pills.
And the rise is just meteoric.
It really is. We're seeing a quadrupling of users in just a decade.
Mm-hmm.
But the mission of this deep dive isn't just to throw these scare stats at you. We need to understand the mechanism. How did a system designed to heal?
End up manufacturing junkies out of grandmothers and weightlifters.
That's it, exactly. How did that happen?
That's the word that just sticks in my throat reading this. Junkie. Because the people we're going to meet today, Frank, Yvonne, Reza, they don't fit the stereotype at all.
No. They aren't buying in alleyways. They are following doctor's orders. They were literally doing exactly what they were told to do.
And that's what makes this so terrifying.
It is. We're going to look at what we're calling the paradox of pain management. We're going to break down the biology, specifically a concept called hyperalgesia, which completely flipped my understanding of how painkillers work.
And the smiley face culture in
Well,
hospitals.
that too. But we have to start with the human cost. We have to start with the people.
Yeah. We need to talk about Frank. So let's open the file on Frank Donders, and I want to spend some time here because Frank's story is so deceptively normal.
It really is.
If you saw Frank 5 years ago, what would you see?
You'd see a guy in his mid-50s who was, and I'm not exaggerating, probably in better shape than most men half his age. He wasn't frail. He was a weightlifter.
This was his thing.
It was his thing, yeah. He took pride in his physical capacity. He's 59 now, but the timeline we're looking at starts 4 years ago. He's at the gym. He's doing his routine.
A routine he's probably done 1,000 times before.
1,000 times. He's lifting heavy, and then snap.
He describes it as 2 little pops in his back, just like that.
Right. And initially, this is just, an acute injury. We've all been there. You tweak something, you freeze, you think, okay, I did something dumb.
A week of ice packs, maybe some ibuprofen, and you're back at it.
That's what you expect. But for Frank, that timeline of healing, it just never started. The pain arrived, and it never left.
The way he describes the sensation, it's not just, it hurts, I've had a bad back, I know what it hurts means. This is something else entirely. He uses this metaphor of barbed wire.
It's haunting, isn't it? He says, it feels like there is barbed wire wrapped around my spine. But it's not static. That's the key. He says it feels like someone is standing behind him, slowly, constantly tightening the ends of that wire.
God, that image just makes me wince thinking about it.
And when the pain gets aggressive, what he calls the peaks, he feels the barbs actually cutting into the muscle tissue and grinding against the vertebrae.
So it's a violent pain.
It's a very mechanical, violent description of pain. It's not an ache. He describes it as an attack.
And this is where the trap opens, right? Because you're in that level of agony that is literally preventing you from being who you are. And you go to the experts.
You do what you're supposed to do. Frank goes to the pain specialists. And about 2 or 3 years ago, they put him on the standard heavy regimen, oxycodone and fentanyl.
And we have to be fair here. To the doctors and to the drug itself. Initially.
Initially, it worked. This is what you could call the honeymoon phase of opioids.
Frank says it was like a miracle. He just says, wow, finally the pain is gone.
And can you just imagine the psychological relief, the sheer release of that? You've had barbed wire grinding in your back for a year, and suddenly there's just silence.
It's seductive.
Incredibly seductive. It gives you your life back, or so you think. But this is where the biology of it all betrays you. Because opioids are not a cure. They are a mute button.
And the thing about the human body is,
It doesn't like being muted.
so the relief starts to fade.
It inevitably does. The pain comes back. But now Frank is in a much, much more dangerous position.
He's not just a man with a back injury anymore.
No. He is a man who is chemically dependent on a very potent narcotic just to function at a baseline level, a level that still includes pain.
There's a moment in the transcript where they show his medicine roll, and I found this visual so striking. It's this long plastic strip of packets, all organized by the hour.
8 a.m., 10 a.m., 2 p.m.
It looks like something you'd see in a nursing home for an elderly patient with a dozen conditions.
But he's a middle-aged guy, and that roll, it's the architecture of his day now. His entire life is structured around the intake of these chemicals.
And it's cocktail.
Oh, yeah. He's taking oxycodone. Those are the blue pills. He's taking paracetamol, ibuprofen, and then he has the patch.
The fruit sticker.
Yeah, he calls the fentanyl patch his little food sticker.
It's such an innocent, almost childlike name for something that is, 50 to 100 times stronger than morphine?
Something like that, yeah. Practically speaking, it's unbelievably potent.
So it's a transdermal patch, right? You just stick it on and it slowly pumps the drug through your skin.
Constantly, for 3 days, 72 hours. It provides this steady baseline level of opioid in the blood, but Frank is terrified of it running out. He says if he doesn't change that sticker exactly on time, his life collapses.
And he uses the J word about herself.
He does.
He looks at the camera and he just says, I was a junkie. And the shame in that statement is just, it's palpable.
Because he's not having fun. This isn't recreational. He's not getting high. He's just trying to keep the barbed wire loose enough to breathe.
And that's the tragedy of what you called the medical junkie. Frank is fully incapacitated now. He spends his days sitting in a chair. He says he has merged with the pain.
That phrase stopped me cold.
Me too. I have merged with the pain. I am the pain and no one else can reach me. It's just total isolation.
It's the destruction of the self. The pain and the addiction have become the primary identity. The Frank who lifts weights is gone. He's been erased. Now there is only the Frank who needs the patch.
And it gets to a point where he explicitly discusses suicide.
He does. He says he thinks about death, but, and this is a real testament to his character, I think, he says he stays alive because he views quitting as one final challenge, one last lift.
He wants to go to rehab, to a place called Nevada Kentron.
Because he knows the pills are destroying him. They're making him physically sick now. Nausea, foggy brain, constant illness. He realizes the cure has become the disease.
But, and this is the cliffhanger for this section, really getting off these things is infinitely harder than getting on them.
Infinitely.
So I want to pause here because we've used the word tolerance a few times. And I think most people, myself included, have a sort of surface level understanding of what that means.
Sure.
We think, okay, you drink a lot of coffee. Eventually you need 2 cups to wake up instead of 1. Is that what's happening to Frank? Or is it more complicated?
It starts there. That's the basic mechanism. But what the source material uncovers, specifically through the interviews with Professor Vissers, is something much more sinister.
Okay.
It's a paradox that actually explains why the opioid crisis is so sticky, so hard to escape. It's called opioid-induced hyperalgesia.
Hyperalgesia. So hyper is more, algesia is pain.
More pain. Super pain, essentially, yes.
So you're saying the painkiller causes more pain.
Exactly. The painkiller causes the pain.
Make that make sense. How does a pill that is designed to stop pain create pain? That sounds like a complete contradiction in terms.
It does, but it's all about how the body adapts. Okay, let's break it down. Imagine your nervous system is like the dashboard of a car.
Right.
And you have a check engine light. That light is pain. It's a signal. It tells you something is wrong.
Simple enough.
When you take an opioid, You're essentially putting a piece of black tape over that light. You can't see it anymore.
Okay, so I can't see the light. I feel better. I just keep driving.
You feel better. But the car's computer, your brain,
Yeah.
is smart. It scans the system and it says, hey, I know there's engine trouble. I can sense it, but I'm not getting a signal from the light. The bulb must be broken.
So it tries to fix the bulb.
Exactly. So what does it do? It boosts the voltage to the bulb. It tries to make the light brighter, to make it strong enough to cut through that piece of black tape.
So the body is actively fighting the drug. It's not just passively getting used to it.
It's fighting for homeostasis. It's fighting for balance. The body wants to feel the pain because pain is a fundamental survival signal. So if you suppress the signal with oxycodone, the body compensates by creating more pain receptors.
It turns up the volume.
It cranks the volume on the receiver all the way up.
So now I have the original injury plus a nervous system that is jacked up to maximum sensitivity.
Precisely. And this happens over weeks and months of use. Eventually, the black tape isn't thick enough, the light shines through, but now it's not a dim warning light, it's a blindingly bright spotlight.
And the patient, Frank in this case, thinks, oh my God, my back is getting worse, the injury is degenerating.
Right, Frank thinks the barbed wire is tighter. But actually, his original back injury might be mostly healed. The tissue might be fine. But his nervous system is now screaming at a level 10 over what might be a level 1 stimulus.
And the doctor's traditional reaction to that.
Oh, the pain broke through. Let's double the dose. Let's add more tape.
So the cycle just gets worse and worse.
It's a death spiral. You increase the suppression, the body increases the sensitivity. You end up with a patient who is on a dose of fentanyl that would kill a horse. And they are writhing in agony on the floor, in more pain than they ever started with.
That is absolutely terrifying because it means the medication is lying to you. It's gaslighting your own body.
That is a perfect way to put it. It's biological gaslighting.
Yeah.
And Frank says this himself in the transcript. He says the pain came back very strangely.
Right. He doesn't say it was the same pain, but worse. It was different.
It wasn't the specific snap pain from the injury anymore. It was diffuse. It was everywhere. It was a weird full-body agony. That is the hallmark of hyperalgesia. The alarm system is ringing, not because there's a burglar in the house, but because the alarm system itself is broken and on fire.
So we have the biology of the trap. We understand how it works on a chemical level.
Yeah.
But a trap doesn't just build itself. Someone has to lay the bait.
Someone has to set the spring.
And this is where we need to zoom out from Frank's nervous system to the entire Dutch healthcare system.
This brings us to section 3, the systemic failure. Because you might ask, why did the doctors give Frank so much if they knew this could happen? And the simple, shocking answer is, for a long time, they didn't really think it would happen here.
Let's look at those numbers again. Between 2010 and 2020, the number of oxycodone users in the Netherlands quadrupled.
To nearly 400,000 people. That is a massive spike in a decade.
That's not a gradual increase, that's an explosion.
It's an explosion. And it's not an accident. It coincides perfectly with a huge marketing push from the pharmaceutical companies. Around 2010, they started aggressively pushing oxycodone as better than older drugs like morphine or tramadol.
Better how? Just stronger.
Stronger, yes. But also they claimed it had fewer side effects. They claimed it was cleaner, more modern. They marketed it as the advanced, sophisticated solution. Doctors were told, if you are still using morphine, you are living in the past. This is the new standard of care.
But surely doctors read the studies. Surely they knew about the potential for addiction.
They did. But there was a powerful cultural shift happening in hospitals at the exact same time. And this is the part of the transcript that really made my jaw drop, the smiley face culture.
Oh, this felt like something out of a dystopian novel, honestly. Explain the smiley faces.
So an apothecary named Angelique van der Geest and an anesthesiologist, Michel Terhage, they explain this in the source material. Insurers and hospital management, in a drive for quantifiable metrics.
For data.
For data, yes. They started rating success based on pain scores. And they used these simple visual scales.
Like the ones you see in a pediatrician's office for a kid. A red frowny face crying for a pain level of 10, a yellow neutral face for 5, and a big green smiley face for 0.
Exactly those. But they applied this system to adults, to post-surgery recovery, to chronic conditions, to everything. And the goal, the key performance indicator, the metric for success, became 0 pain.
Which, on the surface, sounds noble, right? We don't want our patients to hurt.
It sounds noble, but biologically it's insane. Pain is a protective mechanism. If you just had your hip replaced, you should feel some pain. That's what stops you from trying to run a marathon the next day and destroying the new joint.
But the hospitals were under pressure.
Immense pressure. They wanted high patient satisfaction scores. They wanted good reviews.
It's the Yelpification of medicine. If I leave the hospital and I'm still in pain, I go online and give them a bad review. 1 star, doctors didn't help, still hurts.
Precisely. So doctors felt this pressure to ensure that only smiling puppets, as one source called them, left the hospital. If a patient was grimacing, the doctor felt they had personally failed. So what do you do to guarantee a green smiley face?
You give them the heavy stuff. You numb them completely.
You give them oxycodone. And Dr. Michel Terheg actually uses a phrase that I found incredibly dark. He talks about the goodie bag.
The goodie bag.
It's chilling.
It is. He admits that in the past, they would joke about it. A patient would have a surgery, and they would send them home with a goodie bag full of oxycodone and, crucially, repeat prescriptions.
Like party favors. Thanks for having your appendix out. Here's a month of oblivion on us.
And he admits it freely now, with a lot of regret. He says, we gave way too much. They genuinely thought they were being kind. They thought they were being good doctors by eliminating suffering. They didn't realize they were planting the seeds of a massive crisis. It's interesting because the experts in the source material keep comparing this to the U.S., but there seems to be a bit of, I don't know, denial. Or maybe exceptionalism.
There is. You hear them say the Netherlands is a few years behind America.
Which implies we are on the same track, just further back on the train.
Exactly. For a long time, Dutch doctors looked at the U.S. and said, that's an American problem. That's because of their for-profit system, their direct-to-consumer advertising. That won't happen here in our sensible regulated system.
But biology doesn't care about your healthcare system.
No. An opioid molecule binds to a receptor in the brain the exact same way in a Dutch person as it does in an American. The mechanism of tolerance and addiction is universal. And now the dam is breaking.
So we have a system that was, for a time, incentivized to numb people. We have a drug that creates more pain the longer you take it. But there's another layer here, a deeper one. We need to talk about what pain actually is.
Yes.
Because the deep dive suggests that for many of these patients, the pain isn't just in the tissue. It's not just about the snap in Frank's back.
This is section 4, and I think this is the most philosophical and maybe the most crucial part of the whole discussion. We need to redefine what that check engine light, that alarm, is actually signaling.
Professor Chris Vissers, he uses that broken alarm metaphor, but he also talks about this incredible disconnect. He says you can have patients in terrible, debilitating pain, but you put them in a scanner.
And the scan is clean. It's perfect. There's nothing visibly wrong.
And conversely, and this is the stat that absolutely blew my mind, he says 90% of people have wear and tear on their spines but have no pain at all.
Wait, repeat that, 90%.
Yes. 90. If we grabbed 100 random people off the street and put them in an MRI, 90 of them would show disc degeneration, maybe a little hernia, some arthritis, normal signs of aging.
But they aren't in pain. They're walking around, going to work, living their lives completely fine.
So Frank has a worn spine, but so do I probably, and so do most of our listeners.
Almost certainly. So the question becomes, why is Frank in agony and you aren't? The tissue damage alone doesn't explain the intensity of the pain, so we have to look elsewhere. We have to look, as Professor Visser says, at the soul.
That's a word you don't hear often in a clinical medical setting, the soul?
No, you don't. But Professor Vissers uses it very deliberately. He argues that the soul can have pain. And to understand this, we have to look at another case study in the files. We have to look at Reza Homai.
Reza's story is heartbreaking. He's an Iranian refugee, came to the Netherlands in 1989, worked as a lab technician, a productive member of society.
And Reza describes his pain as an invisible enemy. It's a burning, nagging, constant nerve pain. He does have physical hernias, yes, the scans show them. But Professor Stiegers, another top specialist, sits down with Reza and starts digging deeper into his past.
His past as a refugee, fleeing a regime.
Exactly. Reza lived in the state of terror. He fled his country. He lost his home, his family, his culture. Professor Stiegers explains that Reza's body is stuck in a permanent alarm response.
So the trauma isn't just a bad memory, it's physically wired into his nervous system.
Yes. The body keeps the score. That's a phrase we hear a lot now, and it's true. If you spend years in fight-or-flight mode, your nervous system adapts to be hypervigilant. It's constantly waiting for the next threat, the next danger.
So when he gets a minor physical injury, a small hernia,
His body reacts as if it's a life-or-death wound. The alarm system is already primed to scream at the slightest provocation.
Okay, so that's Reza. But what about Frank? Frank wasn't a refugee.
No, but Frank uses a very telling phrase to describe himself. He calls himself a stress chicken.
A stressed chicken. I love that, but it's so sad.
It is. But it tells you everything. It means he was a perfectionist. He was always pushing himself. He was high-strung. He says he was always on.
That is another form of chronic stress, isn't it?
Absolutely. A different source, but the same result. A nervous system that is constantly revving in the red.
So we have social pain. We have trauma. We have loneliness. We have the pressure to perform. And what is the medical system's primary answer to all of that deep human suffering?
A pill.
A pill that numbs you.
And that is the fundamental failure of the purely biomedical model. You cannot treat soul pain or social stress with oxycodone. It's like trying to fix a broken heart with a bandage. It's the wrong tool for the job.
In fact, it's a tool that makes everything worse in the long run.
Because it prevents you from actually dealing with the root cause. It just puts tape over the check engine light while the engine is actually on fire.
But once you're on that ride, you can't get off. And this is where the anger really started to bubble up for me reading this material. Section 5. The struggle to quit.
This is the Hotel California problem. You can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. The experts in the film say stopping opioids is 10 times harder than starting them.
10 times harder? Why? Is it just the original pain coming back plus the hyperalgesia?
That's a huge part of it. But it's much more than that. It's physiological hell. We're talking about acute withdrawal. Frank describes sweating, nausea, insomnia. But the worst symptom, the one that drives people back to the pill every single time, is the restless legs.
Restless legs. You know, that sounds annoying, but not hellish. It sounds like something you get on a long flight.
Oh, it's hellish. It's a terrible name for it. It's not just fidgeting. Imagine an itching, crawling, electric sensation deep inside your muscles and your bones. Like there are insects under your skin or electricity shooting through your femurs.
That sounds unbearable.
You cannot sit still. You cannot lie down. You cannot sleep. People describe wanting to literally tear their own legs off just to make the sensation stop.
And Frank is a tough guy. He's a weightlifter, and this broke him.
It breaks everyone. And this is where the medical system fails these patients for a second time. Most doctors know how to prescribe. They have the dosage charts. They know how to put the tape on the light.
But very few know how to deep prescribe.
They don't know how to take the tape off safely.
That seems like a massive, catastrophic gap in medical training. It's like teaching a pilot how to take off, but not how to land the plane.
That is a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
The doctors get the plane in the air. The patient is pain-free. Everyone's happy, green, smiley face. But when it's time to come down, they don't have the training, so they crash the plane.
We meet Yvonne Conradi in the transcript. She has rheumatism. She got addicted. And when she asked for help to stop, or when her doctors decided, okay, enough is enough,
They just sent her away.
she uses that exact phrase, sent away, like she was a nuisance, a problem they didn't want to deal with anymore.
She describes being treated like a junkie. The doctor's attitude completely shifts. Suddenly it's, oh, you're just nagging for drugs. It's all between your ears. You're an addict.
So the patient who was created by the doctor's prescription is now blamed and shamed by the same doctor.
Exactly. And when the doctor closes the door, when the official system rejects you, where does that desperate patient go?
They go to the black market.
They have to. Yvonne admits this. She went online. She found dealers.
Not to get high.
No. To stop the crawling in her legs. To be able to sleep. To function. And this is where people die.
We need to talk about Carol Vlucht here, because she's a bit of a hero in this story, I think.
She is. She's a patient advocate. Karen started a website called opiate-bowen.nl-lon, which means opioid tapering. She did it because she went through this hell herself with medication for a hernia and realized there was zero support. No one knew how to help her.
She was completely alone.
So she built the life raft she wished she'd had. And she tells a story about a young woman that really highlights the life and death stakes we're talking about.
Yeah.
This young female patient, she was on oxycodone. She hit that tolerance wall we talked about. The pills weren't working anymore. She was in agony. She went to her doctor and begged for a higher dose, and the doctor said, no more. Cut her off.
So she went to the street.
She went to the black market. She bought what she thought was oxycodone. She took what she thought she needed to kill the pain.
Yeah.
And she overdosed. She died.
That is just devastating. And it feels so preventable.
It is completely preventable. But it happened because of that hard no from the doctor. Without a safety net, without a tapering plan. There's another doctor, a GP named Dr. Pelser, who says something very honest in the documentary. She says, I have to tell patients, I am not your alternative dealer.
Which is true. A doctor shouldn't be a dealer.
It's true. But if you cut someone off who is physically dependent, without a plan, without psychological support, without tapering strips, you are essentially pushing them toward the real dealer. You are pushing them toward the cliff edge.
So we have a crisis. We have a biological trap. We have a systemic failure in both prescribing and deprescribing. Is anyone actually fixing this, or is it just doom and gloom?
There's a glimmer of light, a really powerful one, actually. And it comes from a specific region, from Arnhem.
The Arnhem model. Okay, so what are they doing in Arnhem that the rest of the country isn't?
It's basically a grassroots rebellion. It started with 4 professionals, an addiction doctor, an apothecary, a GP, and an anesthesiologist, who all worked in the same region. And they got together and said, we are done with this. We are watching our patients turn into zombies, and we are not doing it anymore.
So they just changed the rules for themselves.
They created their own strict protocols. Number 1, only prescribe long-acting oxycodone, which is less prone to addictive peaks and troughs. Number 2, a maximum of a 1-week supply at a time. No more month-long bottles.
Okay, that makes sense. But the big one seems to be about refills.
That is the absolute game changer. No automatic repeats. In many systems, you can just click a button online or call a pharmacy and get a refill sent to you. In Arnhem, they stopped that completely.
Yeah.
You want more. You have to make an appointment. You have to talk to a human. You have to be evaluated.
You have to justify the need. And did it work?
The results are undeniable. They are stunning. In their region, pharmacy deliveries of these opioids dropped by 87%.
87%. That's not a dip. That's a collapse.
It's a collapse. And specialist prescriptions from hospitals dropped by over 70%. It proves that a huge portion of the need for these drugs was artificial. It was being driven by availability and habit, not by genuine acute medical necessity.
So Arnhem fixed it. They found a model that works. Why isn't the Minister of Health shouting this from the rooftops? Why isn't this the national law?
That is the source of immense, palpable frustration for the experts in the film. Professor Vissers is calling for a national pain program. He wants to roll out the Arnhem model everywhere. He wants to educate physiotherapists, psychologists, doctors. He has this grand vision for 2050 where every citizen has a quality of life plan, not just a prescription plan.
A noble goal. But the government said no.
The Ministry of Health, led by Minister Jan Anthony Bruin, told Zembla, essentially, no thanks, we're good. They said there will not be a national pain program.
What on earth is their reasoning?
It's classic bureaucratic inertia. They claim the existing tools and structures are sufficient. They say, we have guidelines. Doctors just need to follow them better. They're refusing to take centralized command of the crisis. They're putting the onus back on individual doctors.
The experts in the deep dive seem pretty bitter about this response.
They are baffled. They are angry. They ask a question that just hangs in the air and it haunts me. Why wait until we have American death tolls?
Oof. That's a direct shot.
It is. They feel like the government is looking at the numbers and saying, well, it's not hundreds of thousands dead yet, so it's not a 5-alarm fire, it's not a priority. They feel the government is waiting for the body count to justify the budget.
That is the cynical interpretation, but reading this, it's hard to argue with it. Prevention is a hard thing to sell politically.
It is. Crisis management gets you on TV. If you stop the crisis before it explodes, no one knows you saved them.
So where does this leave us? We've covered a lot of ground. We've gone from Frank's back injury to the biology of super pain to the smiley faces to the failure of the government. How do we wrap this up?
I think we have to go back to Frank. Because at the end of the documentary, we see him making a choice. A very difficult one.
He goes to the clinic.
He enters the clinic. He is checking himself in to detox. And he says something that highlights the stakes of everything we've just discussed. He says he is doing it because otherwise he doesn't want to live.
So this isn't about fixing a bad back anymore. This is about the will to exist.
It's life or death. The pain management system that was supposed to help him, that was supposed to give him his life back, has pushed him to the absolute brink of suicide.
And it leaves me with a really heavy final question. We talked about soul pain, we talked about trauma, we talked about stress.
Right. If pain is often a signal of danger or social stress, like Reza's refugee trauma or Frank's perfectionism, are we as a society just trying to medicate away our lifestyle problems?
Are we using oxycodone to treat a sick society?
That's the provocation, isn't it? As a society, we are lonely. We are overworked. We are traumatized. We are stressed. And instead of building a society that heals those things, or having a medical system that has time to listen,
we hand out a fruit sticker that melts the brain.
we hand out a pill that mutes the alarm.
And if the government refuses to coordinate a solution, if they refuse to learn from the success in Arnhem, how many more Franks and Yvonnes are we going to see in the next 10 years?
That's the question.
Yeah.
And I fear the number's going to go up before it goes down.
Well, on that cheery note, look, the goal of the deep dive isn't always to give you a happy ending. It's to give you the truth of the source material. And the truth here is that pain is complex, and the solution is almost never as simple as a pill.
Sometimes the goal isn't to silence the alarm, but to finally stop and listen to what it's trying to tell you. To find the fire.
I love that. Don't silence the alarm. Find the fire. Thank you for listening to this deep dive. Stay curious, stay skeptical, and we will see you next time.